A gym where the women there are happy to build muscles weightlifting. This is for entertainment purposes only. This short story is only for people over the age of 18.
Billy at the gym looked tired. He was tired. He was standing behind the front desk of Motivate Muscles Gym since they opened at 5 in the morning. It was now 8 o'clock, and his textbook's printing was swimming before his eyes. He ran a hand through his brown hair, messing it up even more. He rubbed his brown eyes and the brown stubble on his square jaw. He tried to focus on what he should have done the night before.
Morning, Billy,
Chris said as he came into the gym. Dressed in a black t-shirt with the Motivate Muscles Gym logo and black shorts. The two letter M's on the logo were downward flexing arms. Billy always thought it looked stupid but never told his boss that. Chris was tall, wore thick glasses, had a round head of blonde hair, and the slim body only tall people got.
Chris, you're late.
Billy said, welcoming the break.
Which one did you take home this time?
what makes you think I only took home one?
Chris said with a grin. Chris then looked up in mild alarm.
Why is it so quiet in here? That's because you forgot to turn it on,
Chris said, shocked. He immediately reached under the counter to a switch that looks like it should have been for lights. Chris flipped the switch and looked out onto the floor of the gym. The Motivate Muscles gym was not strictly a woman's only gym, but you would never know it by the clientele. The gym wasn't large by gym standards. It was one big windowless room with walls of mirrors and lined with heavy weights. What didn't have black rubber mats was red and black all-weather carpeting. The middle of the gym had racks of hand weights and curling bars. Directly in the middle of the gym floor was an odd-looking tower. The maximum capacity of the gym was 50 people, and on a good day this was maxed out. That morning there were about 15 women working out. They didn't seem enthusiastic about their exercising. Workout clothes of skin-tight tops that showed off arms, cleavage and midriff, with shorts that were tight enough to answer the question of if they were wearing underwear, most weren't. As soon as Chris flipped the switch for the tower, in the middle of the gym, it hummed to life. The tower was made of black and silver metal parts, like someone tried to hide what was inside, but clearly it was not a professional job. At the top of the tower were two slowly spinning red and yellow lights, not enough to put out light more than a foot or two, and not overly bright. On the very top of the tower a small single antenna stood only a handspan, but in the dark, and looking out of the corner of one's eye, a person might just make out small ethereal waves of white light emanating from the antenna. As soon as the tower was activated the women in the gym smiled wide, very wide, almost ecstatically happy, manically happy, wide. Their eyes got wide and bright with joy as their muscles became far more motivated to pump iron. Sweat started dripping off their bodies. Some women stopped their intense weightlifting to pull off their tops, and often their bottoms. No one seemed to mind that a majority of the women were now exercising naked. There were only a handful of the women that were transitioning from fat to fit. Most of the women were beyond fit to muscular, with packs of dense muscles bulging under their tight and often tanned skin. Over half of the women had gotten breast implants, giving their chests a plump look that made them seem more feminine as they built muscles. All but one of the women that had their bottoms off shaved everything between their legs.
How tired are you?
Chris asked Billy.
I made a mistake of having Kelly come home with me last night,
Billy admitted.
Kelly the brunette or Kelly the blonde?
Chris asked.
Brunette.
Billy said and sounded tired.
I've already had Kelly the blonde, and wanted to expand my choices. I'm sorry I forgot about the tower. You're usually the one that likes to turn it on, and I just forgot.
My invention, my reason for setting up this gym.
Chris said, adjusting his glasses.
I understand. If I'm not here for whatever reason, make a note to turn the emitter on before anything else.
Make sure to tell Kevin and Matt this too,
Billy said with a large yawn.
How's the studying going?
Chris asked as he pulled up the numbers for people that came to the gym on the front desk computer.
Pretty good,
Billy stated.
As soon as you get the basics of the electronics down, and know that power in is power out, then everything else is just logical switches and different directions.
You're going to recreate my emitter yet?
Chris said with a grin. Just then a buxom red head with pronounced and prominent abdominal muscles came into the gym. Dressed in a revealing pink top that barely contained her breast implants, and shorts that were almost painted onto her hips and ass, she looked ready to work out.
Morning Billy, morning Chris.
she said as she swept back her red hair and scanned her badge.
Morning, April.
Chris said with a grin on his face.
Morning, April.
Billy echoed as he fought off another yawn.
Don't start yawning like that.
April said with a grin.
I just got here.
And we welcome you.
Chris said as he watched her firm muscular butt, walking to the open wood cubbyholes where the women would put their bags. April turned and took one step into the gym, stopped, and then peeled off her top and slid down her shorts to shove them into the same spot as her bag. Naked and hairless, save for the top of her head, she immediately went for the 50-pound hand weights.
Just take her already.
Billy said, knowing what Chris was thinking.
After I get some actual work done.
Chris said with a sigh.
Time to pay some bills.
It was not long after lunchtime that Chris was manning the front desk. Another employee, Matt, was there with him. Matt looked like a nerd, with a bulbous nose, dark eyes, a fat face, a misshaped chin, and a thick neck. Chris had taken pity on the brilliant but unattractive guy, and hired him on at the gym, part-time, so Matt could get the women he desperately wanted.
I'm taking a long break.
Chris said to Matt, who gave him a thumbs up. Matt didn't like to talk since his voice was high-pitched and squeaky. Chris wandered onto the gym floor. The emitter in the middle of the gym giving off a strong compulsion for Chris to leave and never be back. Since Chris knew what it was, and how it would affect him, he ignored the compulsion. The women of the gym received a different set of compulsions. One of those is to do whatever a gym worker says. That's why Chris had no problem coming up to the naked, dripping with sweat, and smiling wide April.
April, could you please come with me to my office?
Chris asked.
Sure thing.
April said, putting down the 400 pounds she had just been using on the squat rack. No one gave either person a second look as April and Chris went to a small room off the side of the gym, between the men's and women's restrooms. The room had a desk in the middle, a closed laptop off to the side, gray file cabinets in the corner, and an unmarked door on the far wall.
What can I do for you?
April asked as soon as Chris closed the door to his private office. Chris opened the drawer of his desk and pulled out a device as he spoke.
I was hoping we could get to know each other a little better.
I hope my lack of clothes doesn't give you the wrong impression.
April said as Chris plugged in his device to a USB port.
I have a very committed boyfriend.
With your looks, I hope you would.
Chris said and put on a pair of headphones before flipping a switch on the plastic top of the device. The device was much like the one in the middle of the gym, but cruder looking. It was a can that once held coffee, but now had the same red and yellow lights, not moving, on top, and an antenna that looked like it came from an ancient radio. The hum from the can was louder and sharper. The antenna glowed a distinct white. April's smile faded quickly. Her eyes seemed to take on a white glow, faint but there. Her entire sweaty and hot body relaxed but stayed standing. Her mouth hung open slightly, her perfect lips parting to show the darkness within her, that was as empty as her mind. She was breathing soft and even.
April.
Chris said with a grin, his hearing his voice being muffled.
Your boyfriend isn't important right now. The only person that is important to you is me. I am very important to you. I am more important than anyone or anything else. I am so important that if I tell you something, and it goes against your desires, wants, or beliefs, you will shift your own desires, wants, and beliefs to what I say. I am more important than your own thoughts. I am more important than your own feelings. I am more important than your own values. I am so important to you, you are eager to listen and do whatever I want, anything I want.
Chris reached out and touched the front of April's chest. The redhead sighed at his fingers on her hot skin.
You want to have sex with me?
Chris said and watched April's pupils dilate for a moment.
You are desperate to have wild hot sex with me. Your mind and body are electrified by the idea of having sex with me. You will do anything, agree to anything, and force yourself to do whatever I want, however I want, and wherever I want, even if your body is tired, your mind is exhausted, and things hurt. You will deny me nothing. You will give it more than your all to please me in any fashion I want.
Chris took his hand back, seeing how sweaty it was, and pulling out a nearby tissue to wipe his hand. He then turned off his desktop emitter, and the humming cut off. Chris took off his headphones as April's eyes blinked and focused on him.
Chris.
April said and looked him up and down.
I need you to fuck me.
But.
Chris said playfully.
What about your boyfriend?
He's not here.
April said and was rubbing her body seductively with her hands.
Besides, I don't want him. I want you. I want you inside me. Please, put it inside me.
Chris opened the unmarked door, and there was a bathroom with shower inside.
Before anything, I think a shower is in order.
Chris said with a grin.
You want me to take a shower before you get me all hot and sweaty again?
April said as one hand was on her extremely plump chest, and her other was digging between her thighs.
I want us to take a shower before we both get all hot and sweaty.
Chris grinned, and April grinned back. She took one step towards the shower before Chris stopped her with a hand.
Crawl.
April's eyes went wide as she instantly dropped to her knees, and then her hands. Her muscular back and firm ass were rippling with muscles as she crawled behind Chris the few feet to the shower. April's face was nothing but a huge smile as she did what the most important person to her in her life wanted her to do. Out in the middle of the gym. The emitter let out a small pop. Barely noticeable by the sound. The slight burning of electronics was swept away by the strong air conditioner wind. The event was unnoticed. The effect was undeniable. The 40 women pumping iron felt the undeniable change. Their faces had smiles that grew as wide as they physically could, more grimace than joy. Their movements became faster, almost twice as fast, moving heavy weights at a speed that the human body wasn't made for. The women did not pause between sets and just kept going. Their muscles were screaming, their joints were burning, and their breath wasn't enough. Eyes went wide as the white glow that had been faint on the antenna became a bright burning light that was reflected in the women's eyes. The towering emitter's safeguards were burned out. The women could not stop themselves from building as much muscle as possible. The ability to stop when there were too much pain, fatigue, and strain was no longer there. The women's minds burned with the inability to stop as much as their muscles did. Matt noticed the increase in volume from the gym. Matt knew what the tower did in the middle of the gym. Matt had no idea how the emitter worked, but clearly something was wrong with it. Reluctant to say anything, he looked longingly at Chris' office. Matt knew he should let his boss know something was up, but Chris was in there with April. Matt didn't know what to do. Then the first muscular woman with overly enlarged breasts toppled over, passing out. Matt went to knock on Chris' door, but got too close to the emitter. With the safeguards down, the full effect hit Matt. A look of terror filled his eyes as he ran as fast as he could out of the gym. The women couldn't even follow their hope for help with their eyes as their minds forced their bodies to keep pumping that iron. Until total failure.
The end. This was a work of fiction. Any similarity between people, living or dead, is purely coincidence. This scenario did not, or should not, have happened in real life. Thank you for listening.